Hi everyone, welcome to week 3. So I know last week was pretty tough with that milestone, so give yourselves a pat on the back of having to complete that, and just remember that this week, no milestones, so it should be a lot easier to get through everything. For those of you that have not had a chance to submit your milestone 1, you do have until this Sunday midnight, to submit it with a 10% late penalty. So, make sure you get that in. It's a 95-point assignment, so do make sure you get that in this week if you have not submitted it already. I will be going through your milestone 1 submissions today for those of you that did submit on time. So once I do finish those, I will send out an email and an announcement to let you know. And once I do that, go ahead and take a look at the feedback that I provided for you. These are kind of like rough drafts of your final project. So, if you didn't get an A+ on it, go through the feedback and, see what may be missing. Okay, so sometimes it's just little minor changes that you need. You didn't include something, or, you need to go more in depth in this area. Oftentimes, students that received a lower than average grade, it's because you really didn't know what you were doing. So I highly suggest that you go back and look at my milestone 1 tutorial, which was posted as an announcement, okay, on Sunday, January 14th. Other than that, I highly recommend that you take a look and if you make any adjustments to your milestone 1 now this week while it's still fresh in your brain. That way, when it comes time to week 7, when you're putting the entire project together, you will have your introduction and your method section already ready to go. Okay. Also, with the discussions last week, I am noticing a vast improvement. Students are including in-text citations where appropriate throughout their initial posts. And I'm seeing more students including research to back up their opinions or extra information they're providing in the response post. So keep up the good work, okay? So let's take a look at what we're going to be doing this week. So we're going to get into our module 3 for this week. If it will go. Okay, so here's our module 3. We're going to be actually focusing on biology this week. Wow, what a concept. Last week, we were talking more about the physical environment, particularly with global climate change and things like that. So this week we're actually going to get into organisms and how they adapt to changes in the environment. So we'll get into things like adaptation and natural selection. Okay. So by the end of this week, you should be able to compare how plant and animal distributions are influenced by temperature, explain the central tenets of the theory of evolution, including the importance of genetic change. So that's that natural selection idea in particular. Explain why photosynthesis is important to understanding all life on Earth. So if you think about it, we as consumers, we consume our energy by taking in chemical energy in the form of plant matter or animal, that went through an animal. But if we think about that, the origination of that energy that we're consuming, bringing into our bodies, that originated from the sun. So plants, they took that light energy from the sun and converted it to chemical energy in the form of sugars and things like that. And then we can eat that as a way to obtain that energy source. So plants, they're pretty necessary. Photosynthesis was that, force that transferred the energy from an unusable form for us, light energy, into a usable form, chemical energy. So go thank a plant today for providing us with that. Discuss ways that body size impose constraints on the evolution of organisms. So, think about why we don't have giant organisms like, you don't see I mean, the largest animal on Earth is the blue whale, and it's in the ocean, but you don't really see a bunch of huge animals walking around. Contrast the costs and benefits of endothermy versus ectothermy. So this gets into our discussion post for the week. Okay. So as far as what we're going to be working on this week, since we're focusing on actual organisms, we're going to examine how the external environment that they're in, how are they adapted to that external environment. So if you think about, I always go to squirrels for some reason because they're always outside my window. And the eastern gray squirrel, it's an invasive species in my area, but it seems perfectly adapted. So it's able to jump from tree branch to tree branch with relative ease. It's got big bushy tail that it can use to keep itself warm during cold nights and things like that. So it seems to be pretty well adapted to this environment. So how did that occur? Why do we see all these organisms around us that seem to be doing just fine in the environment? And that will also help us understand what happens when the environment around them changes quickly. So for example, with humans destroying habitat, so how do organisms survive? Well, or do they? Can they adapt to that huge change in the environment? So think about that as we go through this week. And this will help us understand, also those interactions between different species and things like that. So for this week, we're going to concentrate on 3 chapters of your textbook. So chapter 5, 6, and 7. So, one of them deals with evolution, so you get a basic understanding of that. And then it goes more specifically into animal adaptations as well as plant adaptations. So there's some good information in our textbook this week. We also have some supplemental information. So we have a video on photosynthesis. So this is a fairly short video, but it'll help us understand how certain plants have adjusted the way they undergo photosynthesis based on the environment that they're in. So think of, for example, photosynthesis, it's plants, they take in carbon dioxide and water, and then they use light energy from the sun to convert those 2 molecules into sugar. And to do that, well, what happens if the plant lives in an environment that does not have very much water? So, we can think of ways that they can adapt to a desert-like climate, or an area where maybe there's a percentage of the time where there's not very much water available, if any at all, and how they've adapted to be able to survive that and still perform photosynthesis. Okay. And then finally, this last article, Dinobuzz, hot-blooded or cold-blooded, this is going to be useful. Actually, it's required for you to read through it as you're going to be constructing your initial discussion post for this week. Okay. And then just a reminder, with that Dinobuzz article, there's 3 linked pages at the end. Okay, so you also need to review these as well. Okay, so not just this article, but also these 3 as well. Okay. Moving on to our discussion post. So with our discussion post, we're going to be using that Dinobuzz article as well as the 3 links to answer this question, or to address this question. So how would you respond to someone who claims that mammals are more advanced than lizards? So in this response, you need to, first of all, you might want to discuss what this means. So mammals are more advanced than lizards. Well, why would somebody think that? Okay, so you would need to come up with your opinion. Do you think mammals are more advanced than lizards? And then if you do, come up with some evidence to support it. Okay, so think about, adaptations that mammals have versus adaptations that lizards have, and so forth. If you don't think that mammals are more advanced than lizards, again, come up with evidence to support that. So think about the adaptations that both of these groups of organisms have, these groups of animals have, and make sure that when you're constructing your initial discussion post, that you're fully comparing and contrasting those different adaptations. And then make sure you're including in-text citations throughout your post. And in the reference section, I should definitely see the hot-blooded or cold-blooded article as one of your references. Okay, you don't need to find more references, but if you do use anything from another source, like to back up your opinion, then you do need to cite it. Okay. So that is your initial discussion post. So that's due Thursday midnight, just like normal. And then of course you'll need to choose 2 students that have not received responses from their peers yet, or have less than 2 responses, and you're going to respond to them. In your response post, of course, you can address their opinion, and is it the same as yours? Is it different from yours? If it's the same, well, add new evidence to support that opinion. So again, that's a way that you can include extra research to back up what they've stated. If you disagree with their opinion, of course, explain why, and then again, add in that evidence, that research-based evidence. Okay, so each of these response posts, they need to be submitted by Sunday midnight. Okay. And then, if my computer would wake up, we would have our 3rd quiz. So this quiz is a 15-point quiz because, again, we're covering 3 chapters. So I highly recommend that you kind of glance through the textbook. You don't need to focus specifically on every piece of information in the chapter. And then when you actually take the quiz, you can have that textbook open so you can kind of see the more in-depth information and be able to choose the correct answer. If you don't get 15 out of 15 on the first try again. Okay, even though those questions on the second attempt will not necessarily be the same, it still helps you understand the information from the textbook. Even if you're welcome to do 2 attempts, even if you get 15 out of 15 on the first one, if you want. Basically the highest of the 2 is what gets accepted. Okay. And then finally we have our optional assignments. So this is just another field exercise, just like we had in the first week. So if you're interested in doing this, it gives you an opportunity to start taking data, collecting data, and be able to kind of represent it in a table, and then take that data and form basically a bar graph out of it. So what you would do is you would ask 20 of your friends, family, or neighbors to tell their height, and then you would make a bar graph showing that. So you can kind of see where height is within the variation of height within us humans. Okay. So that's just an extra opportunity if you would like. Okay. So that's it for week 3. Again, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to email me. If you have any questions about the feedback that I've been providing, feel free to email me. We can go into it more in depth. All right? Because I want everybody to succeed, and I am here to help you. So have a great week, and can't wait to see your information in your initial discussion post. See you then.